I remember reading Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory over and over as a kid. Dahl transports his reader into a magical factory within our real world, a Candyland filled with outrageous concepts and ridiculous characters, like the Little Oompa Loompa workers. And while I enjoyed Mel Stuart's film adaptation, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I felt that it didn't live up to my childhood imagination. Like many aspects of the film, the dozens of orange dwarves dancing and chanting in unison didn't give me a sense of amazement like Dahl's Oompa Loompas, but rather a feeling of unease. This line from one of their songs still creeps me out to this day.
If you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too. Like the Oompa Loompa Doompa-dee-doo.
Sung by a handful of orange dwarves, this rhyme addresses both the story's characters and the audience, reminding us of the story's overarching theme, innocence's triumph over greed. The imaginative stories used by Dahl to convey this message appeal unarguably to an audience of children. Contrarily, Stuart's film portrays the moralizing theme through character alterations as well as the use of dark cinematic elements. In this sense, Stuart successfully adapts the film to fit the broader realm of adult society, and in doing so, expands Dahl's simplistic message about the dangers of greed. As mentioned before, Dahl's book conveys the triumph of innocence over greed to a young audience. This theme exposes itself through both Dahl's characterizations and the story's general plotline. Simply put, everyone in the story besides Charlie, his family, and Willy Wonka is a greedy jerk. Dahl places specific emphasis on these qualities in children and adults in the book, constantly contrasting them with Charlie's selflessness and innocence. During Charlie's tour of the factory, all of the children besides Charlie make greedy mistakes and consequently receive punishments. Because Charlie sticks to the rules, Wonka grants him ownership of the factory. These direct characterizations and obvious plot patterns serve as an elementary treatment of the theme, certainly directing the book toward a young audience. Stuart's adaptation, however, says something different about his intentions as a director. Check out what Stuart says in his 2012
number one,
interview.
You must realize, I made this movie for adults. I didn't make it for children. And maybe that's one reason why it's stayed around. It's filled with English poetry, it's filled with Shakespeare, it's filled with a very sharp adult wit. And that's why I think people still look at it today, even when they're grown up, and they still can find values in it that you wouldn't find in another children's movie.
Stuart succeeds in broadening the story's appeal by altering the plot and twisting characterization, providing for a deeper interpretation of the theme than Dahl does. In Dahl's book, Charlie resists the factory's temptations and stays out of trouble completely, winning the factory simply because the other greedy children are eliminated. This serves as a fairly basic lesson we all learned as kids. If you're greedy, you will receive punishment. However, in Stuart's adaptation, Charlie and his grandpa sneak off to a restricted access room in the factory. This act of defiance is unpunished until the film's end, where Wonka screams at the boy and asks him to leave the factory. In a display of honesty and selflessness, Charlie walks up behind Wonka and places a prototype candy, which he could have sold to competitors for a fortune, on Wonka's desk. Wonka then whispers to himself,
"So shines a good deed in a weary world,"
and proceeds to reward Charlie with ownership of the factory. Whereas Dahl portrays Charlie as statically innocent, Stuart adds a sense of dynamism by first tainting Charlie's purity and then allowing the boy to redeem himself. Through this, Stuart further explores the nature of human greed and provides a hero who succumbs to, then overcomes greed. Rather than present the unrealistically pure Charlie that Dahl does, Stuart reaches adult audiences by showing that even pure people can do wrong, and even people who have done wrong can change their ways. This genius twist of plot by Stuart not only portrays a more realistic characterization of Charlie, but also poses an actual conflict to the protagonist. By adding a tense moment of conflict, Stuart effectively creates a stronger climax, increasing dramatic value drastically. It is in this sense that Stuart successfully adapts the story to appeal to a broader, more mature audiences. Additionally, Stuart's adaptation darkens the mood of the film, which amplifies the role of greed in its theme and diversifies its appeal. Interestingly, Stuart chose to include musical numbers in the film. Wonka's Oompa Loompas sing most of the songs, which, instead of inspiring joy and excitement, serve as horrific warnings and reminders of the fates of the greedy. This creates a catchy, yet depressing soundtrack that yields a sense of dark terror in Wonka's factory. Furthermore, Stuart includes instances of dark humor that detract from the story's childish feel, In one scene, a plump child gets stuck in a pipe. Wonka's response?
The suspense is terrible.
He's gonna go this time.
I hope it'll last.
Alex Sullivan, a writer for Films de France, comments on the film's dark humor, noting, "It is a genuine delight watching the children being picked off like victims." While darkening the film's atmosphere may seem to detract from its childish feeling, let us not forget, as Roger Ebert puts it, that all great children's tales are a little gruesome, from Alice in Wonderland to Snow White. Stuart also characterizes Charlie's heroic role in the world of greed with the use of certain cinematic elements. Take a look at this scene, where Charlie just learns he has found the last golden ticket to tour Wonka's factory. Now here we have our protagonist Charlie, who's just found a nickel in the drain and decides to spend it on a chocolate bar. Now this scene uses camera angles to really emphasize the difference between Charlie's innocence and the greed and power of adults. Specifically the shopkeeper in this instance.
I'd like a bar of chocolate.
Notice how he's up high on the ladder, Charlie's down low. We come over here at a low angle. Charlie and the viewer can barely see over the counter.
Now that all the tickets have been found, I don't have to hide
Now we're
them
looking
anymore.
down on Charlie from the shopkeeper's point of view. Shopkeeper rudely asks Charlie to cough up the money, further emphasizing his
Take it
greed.
easy. You'll get a stomachache if you swallow it like that.
Charlie scarfs down the bar like he's starving, because he actually is. So that emphasizes his frailty and lack of power. Now at this point in the story,
One more.
everyone
Grandpa
believes
Joe.
that
Sure.
the contest has already been won, so
not
Charlie
try a
shouldn't
regular
really
Wonka
be
bar
looking
this
for a
time?
golden ticket at this point. As he walks outside, you can hear a bunch of adults talking about how the final ticket that was found was actually a fraud.
Take it easy. One at a time.
Did you hear the news?
That gambler from Paraguay made up a phony ticket.
That means there's one golden ticket still floating around somewhere.
So maybe there actually is a little bit of hope for Charlie with this chocolate bar. As he walks away, a little bit of a hopeful tune starts playing. As you can see, he's got a smile on his face. Maybe there is a chance. Here we're actually looking up on Charlie for the first time in a while. Now we're going to alternate between an over-the-shoulder shot and a close-up of the Charlie's face. Builds the suspense as he opens up the chocolate bar. Music starts getting a little bit faster, and alas.
Hey, you've got it!
Now almost immediately, this lady grabs Charlie rather greedily and forces him into this mob of adults. Now here the camera angle shifts from their point of view to his point of view and back, kind of just showing the difference between their greed and his innocence. Luckily there's a guy there to tell him to go home, and Charlie's safe after all. Stuart's darker interpretation succeeds in both developing the story's theme and adding entertainment value. Mel Stuart's adaptation of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory proves that themes and characters can be stretched and molded to appeal to a wide range of audiences. By straying from the plot, Stuart creates a more realistic characterization of Charlie than Dahl does. Stuart's choice to create a darker mood surrounding the story diversifies the film, carrying it beyond the simple world of joy penned by Dahl. In all, Stuart's film succeeds in reaching all audiences, revealing as much about its characters as it reveals about our own.